A lot of people are totally ignorant to all things psilocybin. What would the distinguishing factor be between the microdose versus the hero dose?
Microdosing tends to be between 1 to 400 milligrams of psilocybin. What you're going for with microdosing is you want it to be perceptible, but non-intoxicating, non-hallucinatory. You want to perceive some overall increase in your wellness, neurocognition, performance, emotionality, non-reactiveness, like some level of improvement. I've got some veterans that night terrors, PTSD. Sometimes people hit a lick with microdosing where they're 50, 60, 70% better. They're totally reborn.
And we are live. Adam, how are you, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to chat with you, man. And just as a prerequisite forewarning for any listeners, he's got some construction going on. So if you hear nail guns and hammers, all that good stuff, he's building something awesome. So it's all worth it.
Yeah, we are moving the manufacturing onto the homestead.
That's cool in itself, man. I mean, you're doing it all in-house, which is just the way to go. I mean, I do all my production in-house, and there's a lot of headaches with it, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's so much more tangible, and you can just take more pride in all the little nuanced details.
So, I think about this a lot, like both from an expression of the person that you want to be in the world, and then also like strategic advantage. Because, like I own a company, I make a microdosing supplement, and, I want to win. And so like, the more love, intentionality, and control I can have over the process, the better our product can be, the more we can connect with our customers, and they can feel every little aspect we're trying to bring across: the intention, the vibration, the love, the energy. So, my partner grows them, grinds them, dehydrates them, grinds them, encapsulates them. We fill the packs here, and then all the shipping goes out from here. So I didn't hire somebody for 2 years because just the idea of who was going to touch the capsules and put them into the pack was so important to me. Then until I met like the most amazing person possible, I'm like, okay, you got a job. So we're moving it on. Texas has a whole homesteading law here too, so you can expand your businesses, which is great. Yeah,
no, that's the way to do it, man. I mean, I'm the same way. Like having complete oversight over quality control, every single little detail. And I mean, a lot of companies can't do that or won't do that, and there's a lot of headache that comes with it. But I feel like when you have this standard, that's just the only viable option, because like that's the only way you can guarantee exactly what you want is happening.
Yeah, that's really true. Sorry, there's a helicopter overhead. That's really true. I live in an area where, oh my God, sorry, it'll pass in a second. So I live in an area that's, wow, it's never happened before.
Helicopters and nail guns.
Right. So it's never happened during a podcast, but the area of Austin that I live in, it's like the old hippie pot growing area from like the 70s and 80s, and it's still unincorporated, but it's a very pretty area, super pretty. So like it's along the Lake Austin, or the river as we call it, So like down at the waterfront, just a little bit from where I live, you have like Joe Rogan, John Paul DiGiario, like amazing multi-million-dollar homes like right on the waterfront. And then literally 2 blocks away, their gardener will still be living in a double wide, because it's still unincorporated, still a little bit wild. So we do have this new thing where some helicopters fly overhead more often than not. So I think that's
it's all good. Man. Austin's a good place to be.
Yeah, it's cool.
So peel the curtain back on the business, man. So you are a master of all things microdosing. How does that play out? Like, what was your interest in that stemming from to begin with?
So I was a pretty good athlete as a high schooler growing up. Came from a family that was like fairly intellectual, so I was never like a meathead jock. I was a good enough student and a good enough football player to get a scholarship to Northwestern. I played football there. And it was during spring break between my freshman and sophomore year. My brother was 4.5 years older. And anybody who has children out there, you kind of know, like if your kids are 2.5 years apart, they're both into Pokemon at the same time. But if one kid's 5 and the other kid's 9 or 10, like they're in different worlds. So loved my brother, was always close to my brother, loved my brother, but like we were never in the same space at the same time. But suddenly I'm 19 and he's 23 or 24 and we're kind of in the same space. So we met at my mom was living at the time in Jupiter, Florida. We met in Jupiter, Florida, and we went down to Key West, Florida. We went down to Key West just to have some fun during spring break. 1990, this is. So Key West was like wild. It was funky and tropical and had like this kind of voodoo, like Southern Gothic charm. It was quite fantastic. And he brought a bag of mushrooms down with him, unbeknownst to me. So we arrive into Key West at like, I don't know, 9 a.m. We pull into this little cafe, and he drops this whole bag of mushrooms. I don't know how much were in there. He drops them into some tea. And unbeknownst to me, now that I know at the time, like we brewed this up perfectly. We smashed the mushrooms in the hot water. We added some local honey that they had there and a whole bunch of lemon and key limes. And we drank this concoction of tea down, chewed up the mushrooms and swallowed it all. And just persisted, went on to have like the most amazing bonding day of our whole life and childhood together that we had. Like it was absolutely sensational. And I had never made connections with nature and other people and my brother and experiences to quite the same degree. So it planted the seed in my mind, of these. And I never did like much psychedelics like afterwards. A few times I was traveling as a young man through Mexico and Central America and had some really good experiences. But like that first experience with psychedelics was so profound. I had an interaction with a homeless veteran. So we're totally zooted. We're completely, we're riding these cruiser bikes around. We just feel amazing. We pull into this beach in Key West, Florida, and it's those kind of sparse southern palms, pines, rocky beach, and it's a public. It was a public beach, and there was a bathroom right there. My brother runs into the bathroom. I don't know how long he's gone for. I'm holding both these cruiser bikes, and like out of nowhere pops this homeless veteran. I'm 19 at the time. This guy, super sweet, an amazing energy, but totally traumatized individual. He proceeds to tell me like his whole life story in these few minutes, that as a 19-year-old, which is the age I am at the time I'm listening to this, he got captured in Vietnam with his whole battalion and tortured for the better part of 18 months, was kept in a mud pen, like one of the Stallone movies, up to his neck in a pen, braced out to the side in mud. All his other battalion mates died. He's the only one that survived. And ever since then, he has to live outside. He can't be confined. He's got to live in nature. And that's why he is. And at the time, I had never thought about violence like that. I had this guy's 38 years old. I'm 19. And his whole life had been impacted from an incident that happened to him when he was 19. Like he never recovered. And in this altered state and this level of connection, like I was there, I was in Vietnam, I was in the pen with him. I was him. I completely melded into him and his story at that time. And I had never had an empathic connection with another human being like that, where, we can grasp things intellectually, but like true emotional resonance. It was so profound. I never forgot that experience. It influenced me the rest of my life. Like when everybody was like, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, and I had been recruited by all the military organizations, Navy, Air Force, West Point. Might have gone if I didn't have this shoulder surgery that disqualified me. I had a shoulder injury coming out of high school. So I wasn't like a pro-military guy, but I wasn't like, I didn't understand U.S. foreign policy and all these things. But dude, like this so blew my mind, this level of connection and violence, ramifications of violence. That like I never forgot the first impact that psychedelic experience had on me and my ability to connect with my brother, connect with other human beings, engage from a truly kind of like intuitive, empathic, spiritual level. Changed my whole life. Mm-hmm. And cut to, I don't know, 19, 29, 39, 26, 27 years later, I'm in the California cannabis industry. I'm doing quite well. I'm running distribution up and down the state. I'm talking to one of my guys who works for me. We lived in the same little community. We would sauna together. He's an Eastern European guy. And we're talking in the sauna one day at this little community where we lived. And I'm like, it's interesting that I got in the weed industry. I got in the weed industry in such a weird way. But, I've always been more curious about mushrooms. She's like, I come from 4 generations of mushroom foragers. And I'm like, hey, do you think if I funded you out, because he was a good cannabis grower, I'm like, you think if I funded you out, you could put a mushroom grow up and we could start to like experiment with mushrooms? I was really, the first, this was 7, 8 years ago, the people had Stamets had first talked about microdosing. And I was like really interested in this, like, I was mid 40s, later 40s. And I was really thinking about, I still have so much to accomplish in my life, so much to do. My kids were still pretty young, all this stuff. I'm like, I got a lot to do, man. Started thinking about this notion of life optimization, like I didn't want to get all juiced up with like, steroids and Adderall and shit like that, but like energy, focus, I'm like, I wonder if we could do something in this microdosing space. I'm already in the weed space. I don't want to do something shroomy, or not that I have a problem with that. I think recreational mushrooms are great. I think therapeutic mushrooms are great as long as they're like respected and so forth. But I wanted to get into this life optimization and wellness space with psilocybin. So he's like, yeah, I think I can. he came from 4 generations of mushroom foragers. He grew up with a cabin in the, kind of southern Siberia where they would go and forage mushrooms all through the summer. So for him, it was like coming home. It was like, and within a few months, he might have been one of the greatest mushroom growers in the United States. There's not a trade show where people can compare. So I don't really know. I just know from the mushrooms we were buying at the time to the mushrooms that he started growing. And he started bringing over genetics from Europe. And we really started to push this notion of, does that sound too bad? Do we need to cut? Or are we all right?
Definitely pretty loud, but as long as he doesn't keep doing that, it's all good.
Good. Okay. Apologies to the audience. We had to change locations because the construction sounds got too loud. So I started to really think about this wellness and life optimization space. And so it was like ancestrally coming home for my partner, because within 6 months, he was an extraordinary mushroom grower. We're bringing genetics over from Europe, and we started growing a multitude of different strains. And then we had this glorious mutation that kind of created the strain that we were able to propagate for Brain Supreme. And so, that's kind of the genesis. We really went at this from the very beginning with the idea of life optimization and health and wellness.
I love it, man. So a lot of people are totally ignorant to all things psilocybin. What would the distinguishing factor be between the microdose versus the quote unquote hero dose that people are probably hearing about?
Yeah, great question. So the best way to understand microdosing is in the context of the macrodose or the heroic journey, therapeutic journey. So mushrooms are a little stronger these days. So therapeutic doses tend to be around 3.5 grams, but historically they were 5 grams. 5 grams of golden teachers. Those are the ones that tended to grow in cow patties across the country. You eat them fresh or you dry them out. Microdosing, so 5 grams is 5,000 milligrams because there's 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. So microdosing tends to happen at the sub 10% level of the therapeutic dose. So microdosing tends to be between 1 to 400 milligrams of psilocybin, okay? And what you're going for with microdosing is you want it to be perceptible, but non-intoxicating, non-hallucinatory. So it definitely shouldn't be sub-perceptible. You want to perceive some overall increase in your wellness, neurocognition, performance, emotionality, non-reactiveness, depth of emotions, experience of emotions, less volatile in your emotions, performance, physical performance, endurance, like some level of improvement. Most of our customers, what we really go for is to kind of set realistic expectations. For some people, microdosing becomes a silver bullet. Like, I literally just got an email this morning that brought tears to my eyes. She's like, Adam, I've been on Xanax for 25 years. I've never had a good night's sleep. I'm off Xanax. I'm feeling better than ever. And for the first time in 25 years, I slept through the night like peaceful, like I'm a for lifer. This has changed my life. And I've got some veterans that night terrors, PTSD, like sometimes people hit a lick with microdosing where they're 50, 60, 70% better, like totally reborn. But like the realistic expectation with microdosing is it's a slightly expensive supplement, although supplements are just expensive these days anyway, good ones, but it's a slightly expensive supplement that you should notice, okay? Like I'm a health and fitness guy. I spend a lot of money on supplements. I buy the best vitamin C in the world, but I've never been like, oh my God, like that vitamin C, like I'm 10% better today because of that vitamin C. But you sprinkle some psilocybin in with that vitamin C and you're like, holy shit, like I think I was 10% better today. Like my emotions, that person at work that annoys me, they didn't really annoy me. I felt less volatile. I felt this thing that we call witness consciousness, where you're not your thought, you're the witness to your thought. You become less reactive and more empathetic, more understanding, less volatile. We hear a lot about athletic performance improving, enjoyment, libido raises. And so the realistic set of expectations for microdosing is you should experience somewhere between like a 5 to maybe 15, 20% improvement in your overall efficacy. Some people, it's more profound. Some people have what we call, which is less demonstrative, is the reduction of negative affect. So one of the things that psilocybin does is it reduces the volume of your default mode network. We're hearing a lot about default mode network these days. Basically, default mode network is your shitty little inner monologue that's always judging, always condemning, you're always comparing, always contrasting, always guilting you, always shaming you. It's the voice inside your head. What the macro dose does, and what even the microdose is, it reduces the volume of your default mode network. So you tend to just feel a little better about yourself. Now, some people like notice, oh my God, like pickleball, the ball was huge. Like things slowed down. Like I was a 15% better pickleball player. My golfers, they'd be like, dude, I can't believe how well I'm playing at golf. And I'm just easier about it. I'm not judging. They notice. People who have like the like really loud, shitty little inner voice, that the reduction of that is sometimes less noticeable because they're just normalizing. And they'll sometimes call me, they'll be like, I'm not sure if it's working. I think it's working. I hope it's working. I don't know. I'm like, look, you paid for it, finish the pack. And then they call me on day 4 of their week off. They're like, oh God, I get it. I totally get it. Like the voices, they just came back. I'm not sleeping as well. So we have demonstrative improvements, most of our customers and clients. And then we have reduction of negative affect, less so. But we tend to be around like 96%, like deep customer satisfaction, and they notice what they're taking. So as a manufacturer, as a brand, like it's really satisfying work because we get really good feedback and we're helping people in their lives and everything. So it feels great.
Totally.
Yeah.
What would be the use case for this therapeutic heroic dose, so to speak? Like who would be a good candidate for that versus one that would just want to microdose on a consistent basis?
So they work, they work very well in conjunction with one another, but that's absolutely not necessary. So macrodosing is done for deeper spiritual work, introspection, psychological resets, coming of ages, transition points in your life. Like you wouldn't believe how many people I've coached for macrodosing, because this is the age that I'm at, where your kids are no longer in the house and couples need to hit a reset. They're like, our whole lives has been, last 18 years has been about raising these kids, and now they're out of the house, and they want to do something emotionally, spiritually, psychologically significant to honor that and then hit a reset point. People who are dealing with trauma, people who are just like, I'm just tired of being angry. I'm tired of being contemptuous. I'm tired of being jealous. I'm tired of being resentful. I just want to hit a reset point. I want to gain some understanding, of myself and my impulses, I find it in this crazy time that we live in, it's become spiritual sustenance. Like people are longing to do macro doses to gain some insight and understanding these crazy times that we're living in, where everything just seems so upside down. So there's a multitude of reasons why people want to do a macro experience. Most of it falls under the category of some type of reset, some type of demonstrative transition to a higher state of being and consciousness and happiness.
And from a scientific standpoint, whether it be physiologically, psychologically, what is happening when someone consumes that high dose of psilocybin? Like what's actually happening on a neurological level?
So, one of the things that I kind of, I say this a lot in podcasts, I say this a lot in person, like there are so many better people in the world when it comes to mushroom science and when it comes to brain science. Like literally, I'm not even close. In fact, like what I am, I'm the guy that's had 3,000 conversations with how to microdose and maybe 400 or 500 conversations on how to macrodose. So I'm the guy who's had all the experiential conversations, none of the clinical research. If you really want to know what's going to happen in your brain from a scientific standpoint, go watch. Huberman's got a 2-hour lecture on psilocybin that's terrific and so forth. But basically, the science of psilocybin boils down to this after a 2-hour lecture that you've attended. Psilocybin moves the brain in a beneficial direction, whether you're cognizant of it or not. If you're cognizant of it and you have some intentionality, it can move the brain in a beneficial direction even quicker. It does something called neurogenesis, is that it spontaneously wires your brain in new and beneficial directions. It does something called neuroregenesis, where old and dormant parts of your brain, usually ones that had happier neural pathways, it regenerates them. It regenerates damaged part of your brains. And I have this theory, this is not the right language for it, but it's in a way neurodegenerative in that unhealthy pathways in your brain, it degrades them and it unwires them and makes new and happier pathways. It just has this way of moving your brain in a beneficial direction. So I have this theory on psilocybin versus other psychedelics. We're going to get to the relationship to microdosing here in a second. But so psilocybin, magic mushrooms work on what I call the spiritual vertical access. So from the earth through you to the heavens. You take this mushroom that accumulates the geomorphic energy of the earth, okay? And then you ingest that mushroom. It opens you to the sanctity, divinity, wonder of the earth that we live upon. And it opens your channels to the heavens above so that you become a conduit for a more clear and pure interaction from the divine through you to the earth, from the earth through you to the divine. Like mushrooms want you to be healthier and happier and more productive and joyous in this vertical plane between the earth, you, and the heavens. Other psychedelics, LSD, DMT, they work more on what I call the horizontal plane, where spirits, entities, parallel timelines, other lives, like they come in from the side. Fascinating, wonderful, you can learn, but a little more dangerous in a way, because I think crazy shit can kind of slide in sideways. Mushrooms are much purer. Mushrooms love you. They want you to be healthy, happy, productive, and joyous. They are using us as much as we're using them, it's my belief, because they want this earth realm to be a beneficial, joyous, prosperous place so that they can survive. And their survival is a little bit contingent upon our survival, or we can certainly make the mushroom survival worse if we continue to kind of degrade and destroy our environments and the planet and so forth. So they're using us as much as we're using them, I think, or maybe even more so. And they want you connected to God, the divine, your own sanctity, your own divinity. Almost everybody comes out of a mushroom experience more spiritual, more religious, more connected to God, more connected to their ancestors, more connected to their family and their children and their spouse. It's a deeply powerful experience. I liken the macro experience to turning the proverbial lights on. You're in a room of knockout darkness. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You have no idea of the pattern of the furniture. If you had to make it to the bathroom, you're going to knock your shins and your head into a 100 different, pieces of furniture or things laying about the room. What the hero dose does is it turns the lights on, and suddenly, from a cosmological, spiritual, emotional standpoint, you see the patterning of the room. You're like, oh, that's over there, and oh, okay, that's my childhood, or something with my mother, and that happened, or this is nature, or this is God. Like, you understand the patterning of your own psychology and cosmology. And so then when the lights go dim, the pattern of the darkness is never the same. If you walked into a hotel room at 2 a.m. and you just tried to make your way to the bathroom, you get a knock into furniture. You flick the lights on for a second, at 3 a.m. when you get up to take a piss, you're going to kind of know how to do it because you understand the general patterning of the room. This is what the macro experience does. It turns the proverbial lights on. The micro experience just continues to walk you to that light ever so slightly every day, just a little bit of the wind in your sails. So the macro turns the proverbial lights on. The micro just keeps walking you toward the light. Now, you don't necessarily need the macro to do the micro. They can work very well in conjunction with one another, but they're not dependent upon one another.
You would probably comprehend the light that you're headed towards. If you had done the macro, though, I'm just saying.
Yeah, like you're gonna come. Most people are gonna come out of the macro experience feeling a level of self-love, a level of love for their spouse, their children, their past, their experiences, a whole new understanding. And once you kind of glimpse that, like, it has an emotional resonance, and you're never quite the same. You can't condemn yourself in quite the same degree after you've just basked in the love of the divine. Once you've entered a true realm of self-love, self-acceptance, and understand how the universe loves you and supports you and wants the best for you. The self-condemnation, the judgment comes back, but it's like, it's not the same, It's
This may
temporary.
be a totally, tangent path I'm taking you down here, but out of curiosity for you personally, what has your experience been in communication with the divine? Like, what is your stance on religion, spirituality, God, the heavens, in light of your experiences with psychedelics?
So very, very good question. And I think about it now more than ever. So through the COVID years, because I've created the company right before COVID really started to turn on. So what it's done in me is it turned on a truth barometer, unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's opened up my own intuition in my body, where when I hear something truthful, I just know. I don't argue with it. Like, I'm going to give you an example that might cause like half your listeners to freak out. But like, I heard a lecture on urine therapy, and the two guys conducting the conversation were so authentic, earnest, healthy appearing themselves. The wisdom of what they were talking about made sense to me that I literally started drinking my own piss that day. And I've been practicing urine therapy ever since. Like, I don't, and so I don't intellectually argue with my intuition anymore. Like, it turned it on. And also, when something is misaligned, when something is overwrought with what I call parasitic frequencies, demonic, satanic frequencies, like, I know immediately and I want nothing to do with it. And I'll warn everybody in my world about it. Like, it turned on that barometer for me of what represents the divine and what represents, like, clearly not the divine, whatever you might want to call that, and who's under what influence. It's just turned on the intuition, not in a judgment kind of way. Like, I, I don't hate them. I might hate the actions that they're doing, but like, it so opened up a sense of spiritualized intuition where things just resonate with me truthfully. Like, my body doesn't resist it. My body gets stronger. I feel stronger. I feel more energetic in the presence of that person, that teaching, those words, that wisdom. I don't fight it, and so that's what's, and also I'm much more the microdosing guy than the macrodosing guy. But in terms of my macro experiences and 7 years of microdosing, it's also opened up what I call the ethereal mycelium network. So there's a wonderful film called Fantastic Fungi, which deals with the life and work of Paul Stamets. It's almost 10 years old now. And it's and the mycelial networks. Mycelium are the root fibers of mushrooms that extend out. Massive. The biggest living entities in the world are mycelial networks. They interconnect the whole forests, particularly forests of the Pacific Northwest, and they relay information. They relay information of the trees and pests and who needs to produce what chemical, less of it, more of it. If there's insect infestation, I have my own theory. It's never been proved, but I even think they relate to the animals and the birds of the prey that telling this fish to go grab this salmon and to eat it in this tree because this tree needs the nutrients from the salmon guts underneath the tree. Like, I think it interconnects the whole forest in ways that we don't understand. For me, 7 years of microdosing and a couple macro experiences in between there has opened up what I call the etheric mycelium network. So from my heart, from my head, fibers go out, and I connect with people in ways that I've never connected before. And I'm like, oh, now I need to give, now I need to receive. And the way that the information flows and the intimacy and authenticity of the information is, I've just never experienced this. And I also know, like, oh, there's just nothing going on here, and pull back. So it's opened me up from an empathic and intuitive standpoint a lot as well.
As far as your intuition around being more connected to the divine is concerned, does that like point you in a direction of any form of organized religion? Like, is there a specific practice that makes the most intuitive sense to you?
All right. So look, I'm really gonna be honest here, and I hope my dad doesn't watch this podcast. So I'm the child of a Holocaust survivor. Okay, my dad was born in Vienna, Austria in 1937. Ran from the Nazis for 2.5 years. The family separated. My grandfather had an unexecuted visa where he was supposed to go visit the United States in 1929, and he never went. So he executed that visa. He moves to New York City. He's separated from the family, but just trying whatever he could do to get the family over. Philadelphia Hall of Records burns down. Okay. He goes to a Torah scribe. The guys that write the Torah, they have this incredible handwriting. They have these specialized inks and everything. And at that time, if you could go to Philadelphia with a family heirloom and show that you were a resident of Philadelphia, they would give you your citizenship. So he goes to a Torah scribe in Brooklyn or something, They give him a Bible from the 18th century. The guy fakes a whole genealogy of my family inside the Bible, gives it to my grandfather with these aged inks and so forth. He goes to the Hall of Records in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia says, okay, you're U.S. citizens. He's writing letters to the American Red Cross from that he's just hoping will get over to his wife and 2 young children somewhere in Germany, somewhere in Poland, somewhere in Austria. My dad, as a 3.5-year-old, 4-year-old, they get caught in the Krakow ghetto. They're in line getting checked into Auschwitz. And my grandmother spoke English, German, Yiddish, French. She was an educated lady. The Nazi guard who's checking them in says in English, oh, it says here that you're American citizens. You don't belong here. Where in America are you from? And without missing a beat, my grandmother says, yes, we've been lost in Europe since the war started and we're not meant to be here. He says, okay, you need to go over there. You're not coming into Auschwitz. So, this is a longer answer to your crazy story. But when I see what's happening in the world right now, when I see COVID policy, when I see banking policy, when I see pornography and the pornography industry, and I see and I see Israel and I see Gaza, something seems drastically misaligned to me. And one of the things that microdosing has done for me, macrodosing as well, is look, you got the thing you want to believe. You're in Arkansas. You probably want to support the Razorbacks, right?
I'm not really big into football, but I technically would be as an alumni.
Okay, let's just make it up. So you're a Razorbacks fan. If you discovered that next season the Razorbacks are running through their schedule, they're on their way to win the national championship, but every guy on that team is juiced to the gills with experimental steroids and experimental performance enhancers that are putting their health at risk and the health of every other athlete they're playing with at risk. Your home team is cheating. So we have the thing in life that we want to believe, and then we have the thing in life that's truthful. And my 7 years of microdosing have aligned me with the things that are truthful, that seem truthful, appear truthful, resonate as truthful, to be so paramount over the things that I want to believe. So, I was born a certain way to want to believe certain things. Those things don't seem truthful to me right now. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Other philosophies, other things seem truthful to me. So I align with the things that are most truthful. So I don't participate in any formal religion. I wake up about 3:30 every morning. I pray and I meditate for about an hour, and then I'm able to fall back asleep. I had a mystical experience with an Indian Swami in 2000. I don't know. It's a long story. And ever since then, I tend to wake up about 3 or 4 in the morning. And as opposed to doom scrolling or getting on my phone, I just wake up, I pray, I meditate for about an hour. So I invoke Archangel Michael. I invoke my spirit guides, my angels, my ancestors, Archangel Michael. I invoke Yeshua, the ancient Aramaic name for Jesus, because something just strikes me as intuitively right there and correct in his message. I really like the teachings of a young religious scholar named Aaron Abke, who's going back and he has recreated the New Testament with only the things that Jesus said. Nothing that Paul said. Okay, he has a whole this is not my space because I'm not an expert there. People can look into it. Aaron Abke, and that basically he considers Christianity to be Paulianity because it was Paul who created the religion. But if you just go back to Jesus and what Jesus said, that's the religion that he wants. Those teachings strike me as very, very truthful. So I pray and I align on a daily basis with the things that resonate with me as truthful. And the things that don't seem truthful, even if that's my home team, I can't support it anymore.
So I would imagine you've got a pretty significant degree of just overwhelming peace in your life.
Look, I'm fucking nuts, dude. I'm nuts. I lost $6.5 million in the cannabis industry 5 years ago. I almost got myself killed. I was running distribution up and down the state of California. Things were going great. And then I bought farms. And I didn't know what I was getting into. I was stupid and I should never bought farms. And, the first year we had fires and we lost 50,000 pounds. The next year, there's no crop insurance. There's no nothing. And so the next year we had to double down to try to grow ourselves out of the problem. The market's collapsing. It's going from 1,000 a pound to 600 to 500 to 400, eventually to $350 a pound. It costs you $400 to grow it, trim it, and pay the taxes on it. And then still The day before harvest, we have an inverted atmospheric river, and we have 13 days of continuous rain, 11 inches of rain, the most historic rain event in Northern California history, and we lose every single pound to mold damage. I was extended on loans, on credit. It was like it was like Breaking Bad. It was terrifying. Like, I went down so hard. I ate shit so hard. I brought so many good people down with me, not by commission, nothing I intended to do, but by omission. So I'm still tormented. I still wake up and feel bad about this. Like I'm like everybody else. I just am aware of it and I'm trying to work on it. So, am I a zened out, peaceful person? I don't think so. But do I resonate authenticity? So people think, oh, that guy's authentic. I like that guy. I'm going to trust his product. And do I believe that he's going to live by his word and he's going to honor his product and honor his business and honor his word? Like, yeah, like people resonate that. So like, do I make people feel calmer? Probably not. Do I make people feel confident and inspired in my presence? And maybe I'm not that guy. I'm not the peaceful guy. I'm like the coolest fucking football coach you ever had who gets you ready to go out there and perform in life. I'm not the one that makes you feel peaceful and calm. I'm the guy that's like, fuck, I'm going to get up and work out this morning. Like I want to go for more. I can be a better dad. I can be a better husband. I can be a better business person. Like, that's more who I am as a person. I'm not calm.
I totally respect that, man. I totally respect that. We're going on all kinds of tangents, but this is super interesting. So you having spent so much time in the cannabis industry, like, are you kind of burnt out on that altogether and just doubling down on psilocybin? Or like, what's your stance on cannabis as a agent in the first place?
So everything's better than alcohol. Alcohol's the worst. There's essentially nothing. I mean, look, getting around a table on a Sunday evening with people you love and drinking a little wine, there's something ancient and fine about that. I'm cool with it. Having a beer with your guys, buddies, fine, cool. But literally, from a biological standpoint, from a neurological standpoint, there's nothing good you can say about alcohol. It's bad for you. It's bad for you in every way. And I know a lot of kids. I know a lot of guys my age who are super successful, high functioning, multimillionaires, good people in the world. And from 15 to 25 to 27, they were wake and bake. They were stoned all the time. They were dealing with some level of pain or trauma that they just couldn't process, and they needed weed to move them through it. And somehow they moved through it. I know far less people who were alcoholics to that level who were able to break through. So in terms of even abusing marijuana versus abusing alcohol, like, I'd take the marijuana abuse kind of any day of the week over the alcohol abuse. It just degrades the body in a much more serious way. I am not really a weed guy. Like, I was in that space. I fell into that space accidentally. I was chefing, yoga teaching, and working on a novel. And I wrote a book called Tomato Rhapsody. Everybody thought I'd wasted my 30s. I was like odd jobbing it, chefing, yoga teaching. I was really injured coming out of football, and I got into yoga before the yoga craze. And all the things that made me an average college linebacker by Big Ten standards, I was slow, weak, flexible, funny, and Jewish, made me like an incredible yoga teacher in LA. So like, before you know it, I had all these celebrities that I was training, and I had the whole cast and crew and showrunners of The Bachelor, Bachelorette. That was my main bread and butter. I worked with all those people, and I was making a decent living and everything, but I was working on this novel, and I chefed as a young man. I had a private chefing company and some catering and stuff like that. So I was kind of odd jobbing. Wrote this book called Tomato Rhapsody, which is all about comedic historical fiction about how the tomato came to Italy, 16th century romantic farce. Everybody speaks in rhyming verse. The book sold in 4 days for over $1 million. It was a multi-book deal. It looked like life was happening. Like, we traveled for months through Spain to research the next book. My first child was just born. We moved to Bend, Oregon, so I could write and mountain bike, do the two things I loved, and raise my kids in a beautiful environment. And between the purchasing of the manuscript and the release of the novel, we had the 2008-2009 housing crisis. The whole publishing world fell apart. Amazon just took over everything. The number 1, 2, and 3 at the division of Random House that I was with, they all got fired. And then Michael Jackson died the day my novel came out. So it's like, who cares about, yeah, right. Like, who cares about a little book coming out? Like, every writer in the country went on to Michael Jackson. So I didn't get any reviews. I didn't get any interviews. Movie rights went away, like everything. They didn't, they canceled the second book. They didn't print paperback. They didn't do the audiobook. Like, everything went wrong. They tried to sue me for the advance fact. It didn't work out, but like it wasn't, everything went wrong. So I moved back to LA. I lost a bunch of weight again. I started chefing. I started teaching yoga. I started the soccer not-for-profit with my 3-year-old at the time. And we lived in Calabasas, which is the backside of the Malibu Mountains. It's where the Kardashians are from. But there's like a few little middle-class enclaves in the midst of this very wealthy area. And we just stumbled upon one day this area. We moved into a very modest house in this little community there. And our kids were going to this really posh school that we managed to talk ourselves into that had all these influential families. So my little soccer not-for-profit that I had for my son, who seemed like a talented athlete, it had royalty. It had banking royalties, Hollywood royalty, like American ancient family history. Like you couldn't believe who was on the soccer club. So one of the dads says to me, dude, I like the way you operate. You got this family and that family, and you got this great coach from Europe, and you built this not-for-profit. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, He says, come to this meeting with me. So he introduces me to the California cannabis industry in 2015. And at that point, the bar was like so low in the 2014, in the California cannabis space, it was so low that like honest and competent was the new extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
So like I went from like a broke ass fool to running a multi-million-dollar distribution company up and down the state in like 2.5 years, just because I worked hard and I was honest and good to people. I ended up losing all of it, but I was never a weed guy. So I appreciate weed as a recreation. I appreciate it, for certain people as medicine, people who have real trauma and it stimulates forgetfulness. So hitting a little weed before bed so you can forget your trauma and sleep through the night, that's so much better than a Xanax or an Ambien or some kind of toxic shit like that, So I understand weed as medicine. I understand weed as recreation, but like, I'm not really a weed guy. I can take 1 or 2 hits on a joint, but if I do more than that, like I'm in my bubble, you're in your bubble, and we're just not connecting. And it's exhausting to me for me to be like, God, this bubble is so inclusive and their bubble, it's just not fun for me. I know it is for a lot of other people. I'm a bit of an outlier in that. Mushrooms to me, at the microdosing and recreational, they're associative. Weed is disassociative for me and for many people. Mushrooms are associative. So I'm going to connect more authentically with you. I'm going to love you more, appreciate you more, listen more, be more involved. And then if your energy goes weird or dark, like I'm just going to know, I'll see you later. It's very associative. So it's from a recreational standpoint, it's a much more pleasant experience to me than weed. But I know that weed is really good for a lot of people. And the interesting thing with weed is that for a lot of people, when they kind of realize like, oh, it's not so good for me anymore, they just kind of stop, which is a really interesting thing. Unlike alcohol, where people just can't stop. It's much, much harder. So I have mixed to pretty good feelings about weed. I have mixed to not so good feelings about alcohol. Even with my kids, 14 and 17, like honestly, dude, I'm much more comfortable with them taking a couple tokes on a joint on a Friday night than drinking a 6-pack of Budweiser with their buddies. Because the judgment's going to be better. They're going to be less inclined they're going to laugh and be silly and get hungry. They're not going to look for fights. They're not going to fuck some girl that they never would have, probably even considered hooking up with if they weren't drunk out of their mind. Like your judgment is just infinitely better. So I have very honest conversations with my kids about alcohol, weed, mushrooms. I'm much more comfortable with mushrooms than I am with weed. I think alcohol in kids is like really no good at all. Not that any of it's necessarily good, and you got to be smart and you got to be honest, but you got to be honest with what kids are most likely going to do. So we have that kind of relationship. So to answer your question, I am okay with weed. I think it's valuable and important for some people. I think it's much better than alcohol overall. People are going to recreate. We've always wanted to recreate ever since we've started eating fermented fruit off of trees. I mean, monkeys will save certain trees so the fight over them viciously so the fruit can ferment on those trees and they can get themselves a little high. Like humans want to get high. And if humans are going to want to get high, I think better to do it with weed than with alcohol.
Totally. And then as far as that contrasts with psilocybin, I mean, what are the downside effects of weed and what are the downside effects of psilocybin, or are there any?
So the interesting thing, the downside effect with weed is that you have to use more and more of it. to get high, and it will start to kill your ambition. It will start to significantly adverse your cellular propagation, your brain cellular propagation. It will start to reduce your intelligence. It will start to reduce your efficacy, and it will start to kill your ambition if you do too much of it. Mushrooms, on the other hand, if you start to do too much of them, you build a resistance. Like you can't microdose every day and take a recreational dose on a Saturday and then take a therapeutic dose on a Tuesday. Like, it's just not going to work, because your body will, first off, mushrooms have this interesting wisdom where, like, they kind of let you know, like, most people aren't driven to take a psychedelic dose day after day. Like, it takes some integration and some processing, and people just learn spontaneously. I know one guy, actually, I'm sorry, I confused some of the stories. I heard one story, and I know other stories as well, but I heard one story at a psychedelic coaching online session I was on about a 22-year-old guy who just ate a shit ton of mushrooms, went to McDonald's, tripping balls, and he's home and eating, and he never cared about his health and his fitness. And he's eating this burger and these French fries, and he literally started to feel the pain of those animals and the way they were treated. And then the pain of the people who produced the food, that there was no love, there was no joy. And he just started, and the vegetables were sickly, and that they were cut. And he never thought this way. He started to think about the toxins that the potatoes were sprayed in. He started to think about the suffering of that particular patty. I eat a lot of meat. Farmers market, grass-fed, pastured, like we're that kind of family. But I don't want you to think I'm not preaching veganism, vegetarianism, but animal welfare, we do think a lot about in our family. We got chickens outside and everything. So he started to ingest everything that went into that food, and he spontaneously became a farmer's market guy after that. Got into his health, got into his fitness, got into his well-being, and just does psychedelics occasionally as reset. Like, something about psychedelics is it's so profound that not only are they clinically been shown to be non-addictive, they're anti-addictive. I've had over 3,000 conversations on how to microdose. I've sold over 15,000 units of Brain Supreme, okay? I have heard hundreds of times, I'm not watching pornography like I used to. I just stopped. I'm not smoking like I used to. I barely smoke weed anymore. I go to a party, I hold a sparkling water, or I hold a glass of wine, I barely sip it. I drink so much less. Addictions diminish, whether you're cognizant of it or not, through the ingestion of psilocybin. That's the thing. Like, you can you can understand the ACE2 receptors and serotonin levels and dopamine levels, where you can just realize psilocybin moves the brain in a beneficial direction, whether you're cognizant of it or not. And I've seen it 1,000+ times. So
is there any
they don't lend themselves to being addictive.
Yeah. Is there any risk of like, I feel like a lot of people are hesitating to get on psilocybin or psychedelics in general because they're worried about getting stuck in a negative feedback loop. Is that a reality?
So, okay, here's what happens. So if you're doing a macro dose and you're bound up, you're holding on to your ego, you're clenching, you don't want to let go, and you've given you eat psilocybin, it hits your liver, it converts to psilocin, your brain absorbs the psilocin. If you've given your brain those receptors enough psilocybin, but your ego is bound up, you're going to go through an uncomfortable 45 minutes, because the psilocybin is going to break you through to higher consciousness and higher states of well-being. But if you just have some, phrases, I allow, I love, teach me. If you can just do some things to combat the clasping of the ego, you'll move through those uncomfortable experiences and you'll move into that kind of divine cosmic realm. That's really what it comes down to. The more ego bound you are, the harder your liftoff into the divine space of the psilocybin is going to be. From the microdosing standpoint, sometimes at the microdosing level for certain people, like the microdose will take you where you're going before it takes you where you kind of need to be. So if you have a very high stress mornings, you got young kids, you got to make the lunches, get them into the car, get them off to school, maybe microdosing at 7 a.m. and then trying to fight through all that stress isn't the best thing, because it can get you a little agitated and make the stress even compound. The second half of the day will get real nice. So some people should time out their microdose for when they're in a little bit of a better space. And you can also set a little bit of intention when you just take your microdose. I know a lot of people who just hold it to their heart and they'll be like, 2 capsules, 3 capsules today, 2 capsules. And then, okay, I'm going to take this right now for my health, my well-being, my presence, my ability to be a loving, attentive parent, colleague, co-worker, spouse, whatever it may be. Then you pop them in. Those things kind of really help a little bit. But to specifically answer your question, with the macro dose, if you're ego bound, you can have some struggles on the liftoff. The microdose, if you're really stressed or tense and you take it under great stress and tension, it's going to probably lean you a little bit more into that stress. And then the second half of the day will get really sweet and really nice. But I usually tell people, if you know you're super stressed out in the morning, just wait. Take it a little bit later.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So I would assume you would leverage this as a resource or tool, like any tool would be. I feel like there's a lot of pushback, and I want some clarity on this too, is like with these profound life shifts, life altering, moments where you change your identity, change what you think about the world, perception in general. Some people believe that should all come internally from within before leaning on an external resource so that you can do that deep work, yourself. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do. First off, you either believe that the divine created this earth realm, and so basically everything's divine, everything's a potential resource, everything is within you and without you, and to be used with a sense of responsible, mindful, appreciative fluidity. A teacher is outside of you. Jesus is outside of you. You have to ingest and imbibe the wisdom to then realize, oh, it's also inside of me. So everything is, to begin with, is outside of you, and then it fosters the recognition that it's also inside of you. And no one says that about vitamin C. No one says that about eating a carrot. No one says that about eating kale. No one says that about eating pastured grass-fed beef, that it's going to give me all these vitamin B complexes, collagen, protein, amino acids. So we ingest things from the outside world. Just because we're more cognizant of the ingestion of psilocybin and it triggers a more profound reaction doesn't mean it's cheating. Doesn't mean it's against God. Doesn't mean it's against nature. It means it's in nature. If you approaching it, so look, going to an eating contest and eating a 4-pound steak has a certain level of vulgarity to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're abusing it. You don't need to eat that much. You're abusing your body. You're abusing those animals, and you're abusing the 10 other people that could eat a 10-ounce portion of that steak. You know what I'm saying? So if you go and you habitually eat, 4 grams of mushrooms, you're abusing it. You're abusing the mushroom, you're abusing yourself, you're abusing your biology, you're abusing your neurology, you're abusing the sacredness of what the mushroom is meant to do and offer. So we could do that with everything. We can do that with healthy things, we can do that with unhealthy things. But I don't think there's any sense of cheating when it comes to using a mushroom. I think if you really do a deep dive on spiritual teachers, spiritual evolution, there seems to be a psychedelic component, a rite of passage to almost all of them. The ancient Greeks had the Elysian rites. When you study the pagan origins of Christmas and the Christmas story and how it relates to the Amanita muscaria mushroom, the Christmas mushroom, and how those mushrooms would be foraged by northern shamans wearing red outfits, and they would be put into their socks and tacked up to the fireplace so those mushrooms would dry. And then those mushrooms would be fed to reindeer. They would dance and prance, get wild, and then the shamans would harvest the reindeer urine and drink the reindeer urine, and then they would have mystical experiences where they would relay gifts and wisdoms and insights to the people of their tribes and local clans. So everybody's got these rituals. The burning bush could have very likely been an asahi tree, that acacia tree that got Moses high, and he had these spiritual mystical insights. They had the Elysian rites of the ancient Greeks, where they would go to this mystical place and they would grind different herbs into the wine, and there was some type of gas that would be released from the earth in that area, and the combination of the mystical herb mixture that It was a type of fungus that they would, like a corn fungus that they would use. So many ancient traditions have a mystical right to open us up to greater kind of spiritual dimensions and greater realms of love. And then the other thing that I kind of would talk about is like, the proof's in the pudding. You know what I'm saying? Like, does anybody think Dick Cheney had a mystical experience and was a tuned in, connected, loving guy? You know what I'm saying? Or Fauci or Gates or the head of Pfizer versus versus the person you might know in your neighborhood who's like does some psychedelic coaching, or if you compare the demeanor of Robert F. Kennedy and what he's trying to accomplish versus so many other people that he's working in the administration with, like who seems like the more tuned in, tapped in, turned on, authentic human being? The person who's had the mystical experiences and the insights, or the person who seems like they certainly haven't?
It's a good point, man. It's a good point. Very valid.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a stigma against mushroom psilocybin in the first place? Like, why is that? Why are we not more inclusive and accepting of it?
It was an orchestrated element of mind control. It was an orchestrated element of behavioral control. People who have a mystical experience or go in for mystical experiences at different resets in their life, they're less programmable, they're less controllable. If you understand that God loves you and you're just passing from this realm to the next realm to the next realm, and that your soul is continuous, Jesus loves you, God loves you, your angels, your ancestors, your spirit guides, they love you. They want you to be healthy, happy, kind, and harmonious. And if you die in this life, you're just going to be reborn in the next life, and it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. No need to be fear. Every great religious teaching, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Fear not, fear not, fear not. Control is all based on fear this, fear me, fear them, fear the other. So if you have insights, if you have psychedelic tools that can lower your fear realm, that can make you less controlled by fear, less controlled by greed, by avarice, by unhealthy desires, you're less controllable. You're not going to send your kids off to the military to go die for another country, or some CIA operation, or some United Fruit, or whatever war Israel wants to get us involved in, or the global elites want to get us involved in. You're going to give some thought. And that's happening right now. Psychedelics have never been more popular. And there's never been more people be like, my kid's not going to die for that. Why am I paying taxes for that? I don't want to kill those people. I don't hate those people. You're less controllable. Psychedelics make people more loving, more compassionate, more interconnected, less fearful, less isolated, and less controllable. And unfortunately, our whole system operates on fear and control.
Is that kind of where that whole war on drugs campaign really?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. They started doing the experiments on psychedelics, and they knew, particularly with mushrooms, these aren't going to help us. These are going to go against us. And suddenly they create Schedule 1. I mean, can you imagine marijuana and mushrooms are Schedule 1 narcotics? I mean,
crazy, man.
Right.
Very well. I feel like I'm taking you on all kinds of tangents right now. It's so interesting.
That's cool. It's good.
Talk to me about the brand, the business. So you offer a microdose psilocybin. There's several different packages, right? You got like a athletic based one, like a
so
talk about that.
So we are a life optimizing premium psilocybin based microdosing supplement. Okay, I love the recreational space of mushrooms. I love the therapeutic space, but we're really about psilocybin as the ultimate form of supplementation. So we have 4 formulas currently. Genius is our flagship. That's our most nootropic formulation. Nootropics are the category of herbs and nutrients and vitamins that for neurocognition and brain performance. Psilocybin in and of itself is the best nootropic in the world. It gets your brain firing and rewiring in new and beneficial ways, unlike any other substance in the world. So all our formulas are deeply nootropic. Genius is our most nootropic. We take traditional nootropics, L-theanine, L-tyrosine, alpha-GPC, and so forth, and we blend it with 100 milligrams of psilocybin, a very small microdose. Has 60 capsules. Okay, the average dose is 1 to 3 capsules for people. We have a whole coaching protocol up on the website. I'll go through that in a second. Feel Good is our emotional and heart formula that has 100 milligrams of what we call the active ingredient. By the way, we keep the secret ingredient for obvious reasons off the packaging and off the website. We just say Brain Supreme proprietary mushroom blend, but trust me, it's in there. So, Feel Good has 100 milligrams of the active ingredient with 400 milligrams of complementary ingredients for the heart, the mood, the emotions, the libido. Athlete is our performance formula. It's got 100 milligrams of the active ingredient with 400 milligrams of natural testosterone support, all organic, all natural, cardiovascular support, recovery support. Black Stack is our extra strength formula that has 300 milligrams of active ingredient blended with 200 milligrams of vitamin C, ginger, and nano-curcumin for people who need a slightly stronger microdose. That has 30 capsules, but has the most active ingredient per volume. All our products have 6 grams of total active ingredient. Black Stack has 9 grams. Everything's the same price. We ship all over the country, all over the world. We use FedEx business class, so everything gets there. We have, for us, the nice thing as a brand is like, after being at this for almost 3 years, the proof's in the pudding. So our business has grown by 240% year after year. We sell almost 1,000 packs a month these days. We have a conversion rate on Shopify. So basically, if in the supplement space, most people average about 1.8%. So 1.8% of people who visit their site buy their product. We move between 5 and 10%, depending on the podcast or what might have happened. In the supplement space, you're going to have about a 10 to 20% repeat business. So people order once, they're 10 to 20% likely to order again. We have a 66% conversion rate. It's unheard of. We're almost at 700 reviews. We've got 89% 5-star, 9% 4-star, and there's always going to be a smattering of people who don't like something, what can you do? All the time that we're helping to improve the lives of people all around the world. And, that makes us feel great. We have a whole coaching course online to really educate you, both on our Brain Supreme channels on YouTube and Spotify, but also on the website. You just scroll down. It's a free course. I think it's like 8 3 to 4 minute videos, teaches you everything you need to know about microdosing. It basically boils down to, there's 3 protocols. We tell people to start with what we call the supplement protocol. So actually, our philosophy is demystify, familiarize, and personalize. If you have a stigma regarding microdosing, do it on a weekend, start on an off day. Don't drive, don't go anywhere, don't worry about anything. Start with half a capsule if you need to. Put in a little bit of lemon water. Start with 1 capsule. Most likely, you're barely going to feel anything, maybe a little more pleasant, something. And you just keep scaling your dosage up until you find your sweet spot. We define the sweet spot as perceptible, non-intoxicating, non-hallucinatory, but you definitely notice some overall improvement in efficacy and well-being. For most people, that's like 1 to 3 capsules. So the supplement protocol is 5 days on, 2 days off, okay? And just scale, best in the morning, best on an empty stomach, best with a glass of lemon water. And just scale your dosage up till you feel, oh, wow, I was at my most effective today. If it's too much, I'm going to go back down. If 1 capsule works great. You might want to go to 2, but why? It's going to last longer. You're going to get 60 uses as opposed to 30 uses. Like there's just, and it's very personal. It's very subjective. It's not based on body weight. It's not based on anything anybody else experiences. There's some generalized areas of kind of realm of sweet spot, but it's all based on your own neural anatomy. If you've been on an antidepressant, an SSRI or SNRI, there's about a 50% chance that microdosing is going to seem less effective to you. You just kind of don't know. It's still going to be beneficial. And you can, we've had lots of people, I say work with a naturopathic practitioner for the herbs support and lifestyle, but we've had lots of people scale down their antidepressants, stay with the microdose and replace, and they've done very, very well. Adderall abusers and users tend to need 3 days on Brain Supreme and they stop using Adderall altogether. It's been quite wonderful. We do really well in that realm. The second way that people use the product is something I created called the performance protocol, because I'm a big former athlete, fitness guy, is it's a slightly higher, more perceptible microdose done on like a training day and game day. So my hardest workouts tend to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I will take 3 or 4 capsules an hour before my workout, and my workouts are flow state. My amateur and professional athletes will do 1 practice day and then game day. Always develop your protocol on the practice day, not on the game day, okay? You want to figure out how to use these things. But performance dosing is an every other day or 1 day on, 2 day off, best combined with your athletic endeavors, okay? The third way that we advise is what we call peak day dosing. So You've demystified, you've familiarized. Now you're really in the realm of personalizing how you're going to use the product. I want to be a microdoser. I want to microdose every day, but I don't really need to. It has diminishing effects. I know that every Friday I do a really hardcore CrossFit workout, and then we have a big meeting at work. I want to be on my A game. So I'm only going to microdose on Fridays. I'm only going to microdose on Sundays when I'm going to be in nature and we do this big rucking hike and I want to get 10 miles with the pack on. You learn how to use it per your most desired outcome. That's referred to as peak day dosing. Essentially what microdosing is, it's a slightly expensive supplement that you should notice. People who sell microdose coaching as a service will make a bigger deal out of microdosing than I do because I sell a product. Okay. And it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
It's a vitamin that you're going to notice.
Makes sense.
You're going to take a vitamin and you're going to feel 5 to 10 to 20% better. Don't be an idiot. Don't take half the pack, follow the instructions. We didn't develop this for recreational or deep psychedelic work. There's too much ginger and curcumin and other amino acids in there. It's not designed for that. Use it as a supplement, and we tend to get great results in helping people transform their lives and kind of lead, we say go longer, stronger, and happier.
And you would, like, if you're doing a microdosing schedule, you would feel that dose in the morning throughout the entirety of the day, or do you have some people that like dose again midday, or how does that typically work?
Well, okay, that's part of the personalization. So the microdosing is cumulative, and you will start to develop, and you don't develop a resistance because the anti-inflammatory properties are still there. The neuroregenerative properties are still there. What will start to diminish is that honeymoon effect. There are some people who go on their first 6 months of microdosing and they just can't believe how good they're feeling. Like, it's amazing. There are certain things that we do so that you don't acclimate too much. 5 days in a row, 2 days off, every other day, 1 day on, 2 days off. So, and then after you go for about a month, we recommend to take 5 to 10 days off. Just let your system reset and then let those neurological benefits set in. And then you kick back on again and you can go for a whole new set of goals or objectives or new neurological wiring. There's things that you can do to keep the nice demonstrative effect alive. So, people who there are some people who start microdosing and their brain needs it, their body needs it. And so they push real hard. And I tell them, go ahead and do that. Don't worry about acclimating. The mushrooms are going to let you know. They're going to let you know when it's time to take a break. They're very intuitive. There are some people who I advise, they're like, look, Adam, I love you. I love the product, but I'm not noticing that much anymore. I'm like, take a break. Take 3, 4, 5, 6 months off. Sometimes, if I'm really being honest, goes against my best interests in terms of sales, but you might not need to microdose anymore. You might do 6 months. You've had so much healing, so much insight that you're going to drop it for a while. It'll let you know if and when you need to come back. Some people just love keeping it as a supplement. There's something interesting also that happens in microdosing. It has reverse accumulation. There's some people who go on a bend for 6 months. They need it so bad. They're working through so much trauma. They're taking 4 capsules a day. They're taking 2 at 8 a.m. and 2 at 2 p.m. And they're finally sleeping. Everything's better in their lives. And then they get to a certain point where I'm getting woozy. And then they start to scale down and take less. There's a whole subgroup who started taking 2, moved up to 4 capsules, and now they take 1. And they get all the benefit from 1 that they used to get from 4. It's wild. It's totally based on subjective neurological needs. I can coach you and help you. The best thing I can do as a microdose coach is to empower you to trust your own intuition and trust this product, that it's going to let you know where you need to be. And where you need to be is not always where we're conditioned to be the way we think of a brand, that we buy 1 jar of Pringles on, week 1, and the next week we're buying 2 and 3. It's not necessarily like that. Sometimes you take less.
Yeah.
So what I try to do from a coaching standpoint is just to really help people personalize their process to how they should use these products.
And out of curiosity, with your brand specifically, what sets you apart from other brands out there that maybe not as efficacious, not as high quality? What are you doing differently?
Well, to be quite honest about the microdosing space is that most people really give a shit. I forgot, my head's down, dude. I got 2 super athlete boys. I got a wife. I got 10 chickens. I got the business. I grind, So I'm not at the retreats and the seminars and the symposiums. Few and far between. So I don't know all that many people in the space. The ones that I do know, they care. I might want to be competitive. The old linebacker might come back to me, but they really care. What we try to do with our company is take advantage of every strategic advantage we have, from how authentic and likable and honest and transparent I can be about our process, to the way we grow the mushrooms, to we use biogeometry, air filtration, water filtration. My partner found an exotic zoo trading system for exotic manures. We've experimented with a water buffalo, giraffe, rhinoceros, hippopotamus. We've experimented, we've different purification times and mediums. So we've been honing our process. We had a glorious mutation about 8 months into our growing, where we developed where the 4 different strains of mushroom we were growing had a mutation, and one mushroom came up that looked totally different and more beautiful than all the others. We were able to propagate that type of mushroom, and that's the mushroom that we grow and we use for our products, and we find is perfect for what we do for Brain Supreme. I wake up in the morning and I send my love through our email list, that every customer and client and anybody who's looking at the Brain Supreme website is experiencing the love and the improvement and the health and the well-being that we desire as a company to impart them and to help them in their lives. So I am still very highly competitive. there's still part of me that's a linebacker. I want to make, and then from the customer service standpoint, I want to own that space. That's the one thing that's under my control. I can do that better than anybody in the world. Any 1-star or 2-star review, I call that person up. You want some free coaching? Call me. About 95% of the time, there are some people who are psilocybin resistant. There are some people who have neurological toxicity levels that make microdosing not so good. There's, 1 out of 100 people are not going to have a great reaction. And when that happens, I call them up. I'm like, hey, I know you wrote that shitty review, but I'm batting 1,000, if you're getting sleepy when you're microdosing, because microdosing is neuroactivating and it's showing that your brain is dehydrated. So it's shutting you down. Drink more water, add some lemon to your water, add some really good electrolytes. What salt are you using? Oh, you're using table salt? Switch to Baja Gold, or switch to Celtic sea salt. Take some magnesium in the morning and before bed. That cures almost everything. They call me up, oh my God, microdosing is working right now. I'm like, what do you know? Microdosing is a neurological and biological indicator of your neurological and biological health. This sounds like the most arrogant thing to say, but after 15,000 sales and all these conversations, if Brain Supreme's not working for you, it's probably you. It's not us. And I know the things to do that could get you working better. And if I wasn't batting 1,000 with that, I wouldn't say it. But literally, if you get headaches from microdosing, you're dehydrated, you're improperly mineralized. If you get sleepy from microdosing, you're dehydrated, you're improperly mineralized. I give people, and I'm not connected. I don't get, BioOptimizers, Magnesium Breakthrough. I got nothing to do with that company. I don't have an affiliate link to any other company or products in the world. But take this salt, take this water, try this water purification system, do the pinch of Baja Gold under your tongue, squeeze a lemon in there, blah, blah. I can get these products working for almost everybody, which is a great thing about it. So our strategic advantages come from the amount of love and care that we put into our grow. We blend with only the best herbs, minerals, and sourcing that we can possibly get in the world. We spare no expense. We have very few people in our company. It's myself, my grow partner, our marketing partner. We've got 2 other people that work for us kind of part-time, and we all love what we do. We love our customers. We love these mushrooms. We love these capsules. We love the packaging. It's we just want to pour more and more of that into it. And any customer, from this one, people, I have a tag on the email about this. I respond to most emails almost instantaneously. But in order to do that, I have to use voice to text. So just have a sense of humor, because there might be some punctuation, spelling mistakes, but it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary customer service with just have a sense of humor about it. I get back to everybody almost immediately. If people really need coaching, I offer coaching services. They're available on the website, but I'll talk to anybody for a little bit to get these products going for them, And luckily, we're still at that kind of sweet spot where we're making money and we're doing great. But there's still enough time in the day that I can get to everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I can definitely tell you're passionate about it, man. That bleeds through. And I feel like that, unapologetically 100% authentic self speaks volumes, man. So keep doing what you're doing, because you're obviously doing what you're supposed to be.
well, I appreciate that. And look, that if there's one gift that mushrooms have given me, it's that. It's just be you,
Yeah.
man. Just be you, and you don't need to put on airs for people. Be unapologetically, authentically yourself.
100%.
And good things will just continue to come. Like that's what they bring out in you over time.
I love it. Where do people go to find out more about you, the journey, the business, the microdosing, all the jazz?
It basically, the website's going to have everything. So brainsupreme.co.co. You can get in touch with me. You can scroll down to see all the podcasts that we've been on. We've got the Brain Supreme podcast on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. We have the coaching course available on the website. You can reach me through the website. I think I'm so shit with social media. I have my partner and one guy in India handle all that. So, but Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, we've got all that stuff going as well. But the website's going to have all of it. That's the best way to
awesome, man.
To find out more about it. Oh, and let's do a 15% discount code for your listeners.
Yeah.
So do you have something you tend to do for
Savage.
Your listeners?
Yeah, I like the code Savage. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do Savage, SAVAGE. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter uppercase or lowercase, and that'll get you 15% discount on your Brain Supreme order.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Well, I will link out, make it easy for people to find you. This is all super fascinating. So I'll definitely probably be emailing you with some other questions. And as things unfold, man, you've always got an open invite back here, and we just keep talking about it.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. Thanks so much. This was you great conversation. You asked great questions. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And appreciate what you're doing, man. Keep fighting a good fight, brother.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.